It's not a paradox, you idiot. You just want to sound smart saying it's a paradox. What a hypocrite fellow. Earlier he pompously claimed he aspires for no virtues, and yet now he says, know thyself.
You did it again, didn't you? Did you really think I wouldn't find out? You added inner monologues in a video that I edited. I don't know how you did it, and I don't want to know. You called me an idiot and a hypocrite in your monologue. Now, I know exactly what you think of me.
I'd say sorry, but then I'd be lying. I think it's a good thing that you know now my inner feelings for you.
Tell me one good reason. Why should I continue with this charade? This talking about books in front of the camera? Why shouldn't I throw you out of my house?
You can't throw me out because you like it. Admit it. You like talking to me. You like what we're doing here. There might be covert hostility between us, but in spite of all that, you know you like what we're doing here. You feel a sense of meaningful engagement with me. I can feel it. The reason I made myself apparent to you on that day in your bathroom was because I sensed your loneliness. In spite of your dog's company, you needed fellow humans to talk to. You claimed to be a loner, but in normal times, you still went out, looked at people silently, enjoyed their company silently. But due to this pandemic, you couldn't do that. You missed looking at other people. You felt true loneliness. You can't deny all this. I have observed that myself. So let's bury the past and make a new start. Let's decide to be congenial towards each other. No enmity, no back-talking, only straight talk. Whatever we feel about each other, we'll talk directly, okay? And in spite of all this, if you still want me to go...
What? Peter?
I'm right here. Don't worry. I'm not going away. Not at least until you find some female Homo sapien for a company.
Hi, I'm a Homo sapien from...
What is your favorite position?
I will never answer such a question.
I think you just did. You're a virgin.
Please shut up. Hi, I'm a Homo sapien from planet Earth. I call myself Artha.
And I'm a Homo sapien from the parallel Earth, and he calls me Beta.
And today, he is being needlessly showy. Why the tie?
Just being proper and presentable.
Anyway, today we're talking about Kamasutra by Mallanaga Vatsyayana.
Why were you initially reluctant to read this book?
I didn't think it offered any profound wisdom or any useful information relevant to my life.
How can you say that? You could understand how Homo sapiens lived back then, how society was organized back then, how two genders formed social bonds, and how society or social morality functioned back then. There's so much to understand by reading this book. Where's your sense of curiosity?
But eventually I did agree and read this book.
Tell me honestly, do you hate female Homo sapiens? Are you a misogynist?
I do not hate female Homo sapiens. I hate all Homo sapiens. I'm not a misogynist. I call myself a misanthrope. Other Homo sapiens make me feel miserable. Voltaire has said, world is full of people not worth talking to. I'm happy in myself.
You're doing it again. Willful isolation won't help you in any way. Why don't you accept you occasionally need other people too?
Kamasutra, as we know, is not a book as such. It's just a compilation of Sanskrit verses. We read English version by Richard Burton, so there's a strong possibility that true essence of the book and beauty of Sanskrit poetry is lost in translation. So what we read was very drab writing. For me, the book is a mediocre prescriptive writing on courtship and copulation for novice lovers. Beyond that, the book has nothing special to offer to me personally.
Kamasutra meaning aphorisms of love, but in my understanding, Sanskrit word kam doesn't really mean love or lust or even pleasure. Word kam has much broader connotation. It encompasses much more according to ancient writing. Karma is a phase of human life along with Dharma and Artha. And one has to perform one's allotted duties in all phases of life in order to live much fulfilling life. Personally, I think word calm is akin to Japanese word wabi-sabi. It's not easy to understand meaning of such words until one has broader experiences in life. This book, it's not merely a treatise on various ways of copulation. There is much more to the book than that. In preface to the book, there is a beautiful description of what people of that era considered as the most perfect feminine beauty. She is called as Padmini, or lotus woman. Quote, "She is in whom the following signs and symptoms appear is called a Padmini. Her face is pleasing as the full moon. Her body, well clothed with flesh, is soft as the shiraz, or mustard flower. Her skin is fine, tender, and fair as the yellow lotus, never dark-colored. Her eyes are bright and beautiful as the orbs of the fawn, well cut and with reddish corners. Her bosom is hard, full, and high." Oh Lord. "She has good neck. Her nose is straight and lovely, and 3 folds or wrinkles across her middle, about the umbilical region. Her yoni resembles the opening lotus bud, and her love seed, Kamasalila, is perfumed like the lily that has newly burst. She walks with swan-like gait, and her voice is low and musical as the note of the kokila bird. She delights in white raiments, in fine jewels, and in rich dresses. She eats like little, sleeps lightly, and being as respectful and religious as she is clever and courteous, she is ever anxious to worship the gods and to enjoy the conversation of Brahmins. Such then is the Padmini, or lotus woman." Unquote. I wish I could understand Sanskrit, at least for such lyrical lines. Chapter 1 is the summary of overall text, and this text consists of 7 chapters with fanciful names. I'll just read the names of the chapters. Chapter 1, Sadharana, general topics. Chapter 2, Samprayogika, embraces, etc. Chapter 3, Kanya Samprayuktaka, union of males and females. Chapter 4, Paryadhikarika, on one's own wife. Chapter 5, Paradhika, on the wives of other people. Chapter 6, Vaisika, on courtesans. Chapter 7, Aupamishadika, on the arts of seduction, tonics, medicines, etc. This chapter details 4 phases of a man's life: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and lastly, Moksha. A man is supposed to follow all phases in a timely and orderly manner. He is supposed to acquire knowledge as a student, that is Dharma, then engage with acquisition of wealth and status, that is Artha, and acquisition of pleasures, which is equally essential, that is Kama. And lastly, man should renounce everything and work on his moksha, that is release from further transmigration. Writer Vatsyayana tells us that these phases must strictly follow each other. Dharma must be first, then Artha and Kama, and lastly Moksha. Now there are objections to this suggestion, and this chapter has detailed answers to those objections. What I like is the description of what Kama exactly is. So, quote, "Kama is the enjoyment of appropriate objects by the 5 senses of hearing, feeling, seeing, tasting, and smelling, assisted by the mind together with the soul. The ingredient in this is a peculiar contact between the organs of sense and its object, and the consciousness of pleasure which arises from that contact is called Kama. In short, sensual pleasure." In this chapter, writer suggests everybody should study Kamasutra. Even young maids, before their marriage and after marriage, they should continue to study Kamasutra with the consent of their husband. Something we'd find funny in today's world. Anyway, writer has a very long list of what he calls arts and sciences to be studied along with study of Kamasutra. I won't list all of them. Few arts would be familiar even today because they are perennial throughout human civilizations everywhere, like
singing, playing on musical instruments, dancing, writing and drawing, composing poems, knowledge of gymnastics, and so on. But few are antiquated, like art of cockfighting, quail fighting and ram fighting, art of teaching parrots and startling to speak, magic or sorcery. It tells us what kind of era this book was written in. The Life of a Citizen. The chapter is titled Life of Citizen, but I wonder what kind of citizen Vatsyayana had on his mind. This citizen is a man who is described as man about town. He has nothing substantial to do, just hang around with other men. He doesn't have work for sustenance. He's usually got money from inheritance or from some sort of gifts from others. And Vatsyayana tells such a man how to groom himself and how to spend his day. So, quote, having got up in the morning and performed his necessary duties, he should wash his teeth, apply a limited quantity of ointment and perfumes to his body, put some ornament on his person and collyrium on his eyelids and below his eyes, color his lips and with alaktaka, and look at himself in the glass. Having then eaten betel leaves with other things that give fragrance to the mouth, he should perform his usual business. He should bathe daily, anoint his body with oil every other day, apply a lathering substance to his body every 3 days, get his head, including face, shaved every 4 days, and the other parts of his body every 5 or 10 days. All these things should be done without fail, and the sweat of the armpit should also be removed. Meals should be taken in the forenoon, in the afternoon, and again at night. According to Charayana, name of a scholar, after breakfast, parrots and other birds should be taught to speak, and the fighting of cocks, quails, and rams should follow. A limited time should be devoted to diversions with Pitamarthas, a learned companion, Vitas, a libertine, and Dushakas, entertainers. And then should be taken the midday sleep. After this, the householder, having put on his clothes and ornaments, should during the afternoon converse with his friends. In the evening, there should be singing, and after that, the householder, along with his friend, should await in his room, previously decorated and perfumed, the arrival of the woman that may be attached to him, or he may send a female messenger to her, or go for her himself. After her arrival at his house, he and his friend should welcome her and entertain her with a loving and agreeable conversations. Thus ends the duties of the day. Unquote. In short, this so-called man about town and householder is simply a wastrel. And if this is not enough, Vatsyayana suggests even more things to be done occasionally as diversions and amusements, like, quote, holding festivals in honor of different deities, social gatherings of both sexes, drinking parties, picnics, and other social diversions, unquote. Have you noticed these chapters read like articles of today's lifestyle magazines, relevant only for privileged elites?
Yeah.
That is usually a minority in a society.
Yeah.
And this book itself reads like a series of trivial articles from some kind of a salacious tabloid.
Yeah.
This chapter is pretty self-explanatory by title. Vatsyayana lists all kinds of women a man can safely enjoy, and also all kinds of women a man should avoid. And both of these are pretty long lists. There's a glimpse here of what kind of roles women played in that society. Then there's a long list of all qualities and virtues a man's friends and messengers should possess. As I said earlier, it's a prescriptive writing, how things should be, rather than how things actually were back then. In this chapter, Vatsyayana categorizes males and females first by the sizes of their genitals, then how strong their passion for each other is, and finally the amount of time they manage to engage in their sexual union. According to him, the quality of pleasure, both for male and female, depends on all these factors and what kind of combination they engage in. So, quote,
There being thus 9 kinds of union with regard to dimensions, force of passion, and time, respectively. By making combinations of them, innumerable kinds of union would be produced. Therefore, in each particular kind of sexual union, men should use such means as they may think suitable for the occasion." Unquote. Now, I have a minor curiosity. After reading these further lines, a question occurred to me. I'll first read lines. Quote, "At the first time, a sexual union, the passion of the male is intense and his time is short. But in subsequent unions, on the same day, the reverse of this is the case. With the female, however, it is the contrary. For at the first time, her passion is weak, and then her time long. But on subsequent occasions, on the same day, her passion is intense and her time short, until her passion is satisfied." Unquote. Now, my question is, Vatsyayana was supposed to be a sage who had renounced all worldly pleasures to engage his mind for higher spiritual objectives. Reportedly, he was also a virgin. So how come he would know about passions of females?
Valid question. Maybe he was a smart observer. Okay, so this is the part that this book became so famous for. That is 64 types of unions between males and females. And why exactly this number? There's an explanation regarding that. Quote, "The followers of Bhavya," that's the name of another scholar before Vatsyayana, say that this part contains 8 subjects, namely the embrace, kissing, scratching with the nails of fingers, biting, lying down, making various sounds, playing the part of a man, and the Auparishtaka or mouth congress. Each of these subjects being of 8 kinds, and 8 multiplied by 8 being 64, this part is therefore named 64. But Vatsyayana affirms that as this part contains also the following subjects, namely striking, crying, the acts of a man during congress, the various kinds of congress, and other subjects, the name 64 is given to it only accidentally. Unquote. So, according to Vatsyayana, there is much more than just 64 acts, and there is a fanciful name to each act. We thought we would not spoil the fun by giving the details here, so I'll just summarize what each chapter is all about. Quote, Chapter 2 is about various types of embraces. Chapter 3 is about various types of kissing. Chapter 4 is about pressing or making or marking or scratching with nails. Chapter 5 is about biting and the means to be employed with regard to women of different countries. Chapter 6 is about different ways of lying down and various kinds of congress. Chapter 7 is about various modes of striking and of the sounds appropriate to them. Chapter 8 is about women acting the part of a man and of the work of a man. Chapter 9 is about Auparishtaka or mouth congress. End quote.
This chapter is the culmination of all the drama that had followed so far. What I particularly liked is the description of post-coital behavior as prescribed by Vatsyayana. Quote, "At the end of Congress, the lovers, with modesty and not looking at each other, should go separately to the washing room. After this, sitting on their own places, they should eat some betel leaves, and the citizen should apply with his own hand to the body of the woman some pure sandalwood ointment or ointment of some other kind. He should then embrace her with his left hand, and with agreeable words should cause her to drink from a cup held in his own hand, or he may give her water to drink. They can then eat sweetmeats or anything else according to their liking, and may drink fresh juice, soup, gruel, extract of meat, sherbet, the juice of mango fruits, the extract of the juices of the citron tree mixed with sugar, or anything that may be liked in different countries and known to be sweet, soft, and pure. The lovers may also sit on the terrace of the palace or house and enjoy the moonlight and carry on an agreeable conversation. At this time, too, while the woman lies in his lap with her face towards the moon, the citizen should show her the different planets, the morning star, the polar star, and the 7 rishis or great bear. This is the end of sexual union." Unquote. Very romantic indeed. For marriage, what kind of girl a man should look for? Quote, "A man should fix his affections upon a girl who is of good family, whose parents are alive, and who is 3 years or more younger than himself. She should be born of a highly respectable family, possessed of wealth, well connected, and with many relations and friends. She should also be beautiful, of a good disposition, with lucky marks on her body, and with good hair, nails, teeth, ears, eyes, and breasts, neither more nor less than they ought to be, and one of them entirely wanting and not troubled with a sickly body. The man should, of course, also possess these qualities himself." Unquote. There's a long list of what kind of girls man should avoid. These next lines I find not very kind towards girls, but sadly very practical. Quote, "When a girl becomes marriageable, her parents should dress her smartly and should place her where she can be easily seen by all. Every afternoon, having dressed her and decorated her in a becoming manner, they should send her with her female companions to sports, sacrifices, and marriage ceremonies, and thus show her to advantage in society, because she is a kind of merchandise." Unquote. As I said, very practical. This chapter is just common sense for any man. Not to rush things after marriage, take it easy and make the girl feel comfortable, not to force himself on her, but slowly seduce her and so on. While reading these chapters, I realized the advice Vatsyayana has for both males and females is not always very noble, to say the least. It's actually manipulation by both genders to their own means. I felt uncomfortable reading these chapters. This is nothing but the dances of desires of both genders. So what? That's the nature of reality, day and night, darkness and light. It's the dance of opposites. It's fun, it's play, it's life. There's no profundity in it. There's no ultimate meaning or great philosophy in it. Is it that you can't dance, that's why you don't like this whole charade? In our last talk, you proudly proclaimed Buddha as your intellectual hero, and yet now you seem visibly lusting after female Homo sapiens. Your hero renounced his wife and wandered around searching for answers to human condition. Shouldn't you emulate your hero and renounce lusting after females and instead lust after the higher truths of life? I lust after truths of life and I lust after females. Why should they be alternative to each other? Why shouldn't they go hand in hand? Ever heard of the phrase cognitive dissonance? Yeah. The human mind can accommodate two contradicting ideas at the same time. But have you ever heard of the phrase middle way? That's the core of Buddha's teachings. Be in the world, but be detached. Appreciate, but don't possess. Admire, but don't consume. I don't really lust after females. I admire and appreciate them as part of creation. They make half of humanity. Don't you think understanding them, their perspective, their approach to life is important to understand humanity as a whole? There's more to female Homo sapiens than you might think. Yeah, you said it. They are Homo sapiens. I believe I understand nature of Homo sapiens as a species. What is so different about female Homo sapiens? They are same as male Homo sapiens. They are also filled with same anger, lust, curiosity, ambition, envy, jealousy, all masculine virtues. They might carry few feminine virtues that male gender lacks, but they are no different. Don't give them more importance than male Homo sapiens. Don't make them the purpose of your life. Don't expect any pleasure or happiness out of them, just like you won't make any man or god purpose of your life. Oh man, you really are a hardcore misanthrope. In the coming days, I hope to be able to change your mind. This part describes how a married woman should behave towards her husband. If her husband has multiple wives, how they should behave with each other. A virgin widow who is remarried, how she should behave. How a married woman disliked by her husband should behave.
how women in a king's harem should behave, and blah blah blah. Honestly, I got bored reading this. For me, it's nothing more than a man telling a woman how to behave. I sense pompous patriarchy here, so I'll skip this part. Of course, he sensed pompous patriarchy in earlier part. Doesn't mean Vatsyayana himself was a pompous patriarch. In these two parts, he describes how women can have agency in their own lives and on their sexuality. They can reject a man if they don't like any of his virtues, and how a man should convince a woman who is hard to get. But all in all, it's just same as he said, dance of desires from both genders and manipulation games by both genders to win the favors from each other. This part is about how to use various medicines, remedies, tonics, lotions and such to increase your desire to, or how to make others desire you. Most of these advices sound outright bizarre in today's world. Book's central theme and end goal is pleasure. How to obtain pleasure and enjoy your senses. For me personally, I believe pleasure is a dead end, a cul-de-sac that leads to nowhere. It doesn't really teach anything. For a conscientious person, pleasure just ends up with guilt. Guilt that I wasted so much time and effort to acquire this pleasure that was utterly transient. Transiency of pleasure makes it unworthy of all the obsessive attention that Homo sapiens pay to it. I personally don't take my pleasure seriously, that's why I'm happy.
I assume you're drinking this coffee for pleasure?
Yes, I drink coffee for its rich flavors, its pleasurable sensation on my taste buds, but above all, I drink it because it keeps my mind alert. For alert mind, I drink it. I drink it for alert mind, not merely for pleasure.
Enough with stoic talk, Mr. Marcus Aurelius. We Homo sapiens work on reward system. Pleasure is our reward for all the hard work that we do. Work to acquire human virtues, new skills, to woo women so we can get pleasure out of them. Not just sexual, but emotional, existential, spiritual.
Hold on. Cut this nonsense. Don't forget they are Homo sapiens too. And as you said, they also work on reward system. For a female Homo sapien, reward is a male Homo sapien with plentiful resources to support them and their progeny. A male Homo sapiens with so-called glorified and noble virtues is of no use to female Homo sapiens.
Your viewpoint towards females is very extreme, don't you think? If you can accept that male Homo sapiens can aspire and acquire glorified and noble virtues, so can female Homo sapiens. You have to believe that there is more to female than merely looking for a male with resources.
You are making a case of exceptionalism of female Homo sapiens because you are biased towards them. You seek your pleasure and sense of meaning and purpose in them. That's your bias. You are a deluded male Homo sapien. I treat them as just another member of our species, not better than male, not worse than male. Just another member, no exceptionalism.
Are you totally asexual? Don't you feel something when you see a particularly pulchritudinous female around?
No. Not really. I'm too busy with my own mind to see how fellow Homo sapiens look.
Good Lord, you are boring. No wonder you're a virgin and a loner.
Why do you keep suggesting on me acquiring a company of a female Homo sapiens?
Because that might make you happy.
I've already got everything that a male Homo sapien needs for happiness. A healthy, youthful body, an active, thoughtful mind, and the company of a dog. I don't need company of a female Homo sapiens.
A female Homo sapiens can give you that a dog cannot.
I get enough love from my dog.
I was not talking about love.
If you're referring to act of copulation, then as I said earlier, act of copulation gives pleasure, and pleasure does not mean happiness.
I was not talking about act of copulation. I was talking about after effect of copulation, a progeny, a child.
Your planet might be less populated, but this Earth is overpopulated with Homo sapiens. As you can see, more than 7 billion of us. I don't want to add my share into it. I don't want a child. And I believe a dog is as good as having a child, or even better. I think you're losing your argument here. I don't need a female Homo sapiens in my life.
I bet you can't have a meaningful conversation with your dog. Something you can have with a female Homo sapien.
Idea of a meaningful conversation is overrated. All talk is just meaningless noise.
Do you think we are making meaningless noise right now or having a meaningful conversation?
We're making noise, meaningless noise. We're adding nothing meaningful for our viewers. What I find astonishing is, with all the talks of courtship, companionship, coercion, copulation, congress, there's not a single mention of contraception and the consequence of copulation, conception.
I get it, you like alliterations.
Now that I have read the book, I realize my earlier reluctance was unwarranted, because it turned out the book was utterly mediocre. Not at all what I expected, because I had not read the book earlier. I carried the popular opinion that it was about erotica and sexual positions. But it's not just that. Honestly, I feel like I wasted my time reading the archaic and irrelevant book. Irrelevant by today's standards, but perhaps it was necessary. An important book back in the time when it was written. Every book has its importance in certain era and perhaps loses the importance over time. So this book, Kamasutra, should have lost its importance and be forgotten over time. But I don't know, perhaps Homo sapiens' obsession with sex kept this book alive till now. So had you read the book earlier?
Yes.
So tell me then, what exactly prompted you to suggest this book?
I wanted to see how you'd react to it. I suggested this book just to judge your disposition, where you stand on such subject. Are you prudish or are you accepting of new ideas?
And how do you judge me now?
You are a terribly prosaic man, no imagination, no fantasy.
You know, the first words that appear to me when I wake up from sleep and regain my consciousness are reason, rationality.
And you know what words appear to me after I wake up?
Don't want to know, but since we are making meaningless noise here, go on.
Beauty, freedom, life, love, empathy. Now I genuinely wonder if you are my doppelganger. I am your doppelganger, you are my doppelganger. I wonder, I am not a beta, but a better version of you in my world. You seem like an inadequate version of me on your planet. You need far more refinement to become like me.
I'm glad we're done with his choice. The next book is my choice, and as I said earlier, I choose Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari, in which the writer talks about a brief history of tomorrow, what the future holds for our species. And now I shudder to ask you, but have you got a book on your mind after Homo Deus?
Yes, after Homo Deus I choose 50 Shades of Grey.
No, not in my conscious life am I going to read that.
Relax, just kidding. My planet does not have this book. Only your planet can produce such nonsense. After Homo Deus I choose Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse.
Good one. So that's all for now. Bye.
You know, I lost it to my neighbor on my planet, a young divorcee.
I don't want to know.
Very liberal-minded.
Again, I don't want to know.
We tried every position we can imagine.
Okay, please shut up.